Hey guys, welcome to another video on the Inside Spurs channel. And a happy Friday. Happy Good Friday to all involved. Obviously, in this video, we're going to be talking a little bit about Bodo Glimt and who they actually are. Because I don't think a lot of us are gonna know who they are and what they're about, and the formations that they play and things like that. Obviously, this won't be a this is why I expect their team to be like kind of video, because we don't play them for a couple of weeks. But I thought it was a really great opportunity to kind of discuss what they're all about. We'll talk about the formation they play. We'll talk about the manager and his style of football. We'll be talking about their season success in the Europa League so far. They've only played a couple of games domestically. Scandinavian teams do their seasons a bit differently. So we'll be talking mostly about their form in the Europa League. So we'll jump in and talk about that. Obviously, it's still great after yesterday going through. It's like doing the video last night. There was so much good positivity coming out of last night, and it was great. Actually, I probably, I'm going to be honest, I stayed on longer than I ever expected to. I was knackered this morning because of it, but when things are great, you want to make the most of it. Things haven't been great long enough, so there is that. Now, that being said, it was a good night. I totally agree. And I said to you, well, look, enjoy the night, make the most of it, have some fun with it. But we're back on the horse today. Bodo Glimt's coming in a couple of weeks' time. Got Forest Monday night. We got Liverpool at Anfield at the weekend following. There's still plenty of football between yesterday and old Bodo Glimt in a couple of weeks' time. But speaking of Bodo Glimt and who they are about, you might not know anything about them. So hopefully I'll be able to feed you a little bit of information. So when I talked last night, I talked about their performance year to date in the Europa League. Obviously, they've played quite a few games. There's plenty of information to get into. They started off with a 3-2 win at home to Porto, which is a phenomenal result. They drew 0-0 away to Union, the Belgian team. They win then 2-1 away to Braga, which again, it's a cracking result. And evidently they have a lot of success with Portuguese sides. They then lost 2-1 at home to Karabag, which that's interesting, and we'll definitely take that into account. They lose 3-2 away to Manchester United. They beat Besiktas 2-1 at home, which is a great result for them as well. Beating Maccabi Tel Aviv 3-1. And then they finish off the first 8 games of the Europa League with a 1-1 draw away to Nice. So, obviously, I think the standout result really would be the Porto result. You could put in Braga away as well. That's quite a great result for them. And obviously Besiktas. But, Man United, that they gave Man United a lot of troubles, if I'm honest. They gave Man United a lot of troubles. Obviously, I know Man United scored early on, but Bodo Glimt were actually leading that game at 1.21. So there was that. And then they go into the knockout phase, but they go into the playoffs. So they weren't part of the top 8 like Man United or Tottenham. They were in the next bunch, and they beat FC Twente, the Dutch side. They lost 2-1 away and then beat them 5-2. They won in extra time, but won 5-2, which is, fantastic. They then obviously play the Greek giants Olympiacos, and they beat them 3-0 at home. Olympiacos that's no gimme, okay? And then they go to Olympiacos and lose 2-1. So they win 4-2 on aggregate. And obviously, last round result, obviously, I know they won on penalties, and it was a bonkers old penalties. We watched it live actually on the channel, and I sort of did a watch along sort of thing for it. But beating Lazio at home 2-0 in the first leg is massive. I know they lose 3-1 in the second leg, but they win on penalties. I think my key thing with their results is look at how they do at home. Don't expect to rock up and beat them 4-0, just because they're a Norwegian side and maybe they're not part of one of the top 5 leagues. And I would get your school of thought normally, but when they've beaten Porto at home, they've beaten Lazio at home, they've won away to Braga, they beat Besiktas at home. These are, they've beaten some really solid teams. I know Porto maybe having a bit of a downturn in form, but you went away at Braga. They're a top 4 side in Portugal. You beat Besiktas as one of the bigger Turkish teams. I'm just saying that, you don't scoff at these teams. They beat Lazio, who are sixth in the Serie A. Let's not scoff at this team. I think a lot of people go, oh, well, that's us in the final. Then let's just slow our horses on that side of things. Okay. I don't think we have not been good enough this season to dictate that's a guaranteed win. I don't, hell, we played Southampton at home and I wouldn't even say that was a guaranteed win. And they were bottom of the league and they're awful. So let's just make sure that we're aware of that. Now, the key thing for us is obviously fitness and health. Between here and there, it's fitness and health. You know, I think that's one of the first time looking at that back five, including keeper from yesterday, that was the back five that we've had our most success with. I know people like Spence and I like people like Big Kev Dancer, and I like both of those boys. That was the main five. When we think about the success we had last season, where when we were fit and healthy, that was the back five that we had. And it showed yesterday. I thought in the two legs, you might even put it out there and say that Desti Doggy might have been the best player in the two legs in both teams. In both teams. I thought Romero was magnificent yesterday. Mickey for me was my man of the match yesterday, and I thought Pedro Porro, he's been kicked lumps out of after the goal that we conceded in the first leg, but for the rest of that game he was great. He was brilliant yesterday, Pedro Porro. Defensively solid as a rock, good with the ball, had no issues, ball over the top. If they're going to squeeze up, Slanky's going to run in behind. And we had a lot of success actually with that. And I noticed a lot of times that Romero put a ball over the top into the channel for Slanky to run onto. And we had a lot of success. It dragged us up the field so many times when they were pressuring us. So I think it was massive to get those five back. And I think, when we think about going into the the first and second leg, those five are going to be massive again. They will be. Bentancur having the best form he's had for Spurs in a couple of years, 2-3 years even, is massive. The emergence of Lucas Bergvall being, an absolute rock star in the making is huge, because then obviously it feels like Pape Matar is a bit of our closer. It's like, right, you're going to run yourself into the ground for 60, 70 minutes. Then we're going to bring on the Duracell bunny of Pape Matar, and he's just going to go and run wild. And we've had a lot of success with Pape closing out games, because defensively he's probably a bit more sound than a Maddison and a Bergvall, but his energy levels are unrivaled at times. So look, obviously we'll see on Maddison, by the way. I expect Ange to probably be talking today about the situation. So we'll find out a little bit. Around Maddison and his injury. But we'll sort of see. Beyond Bodo Glimt, I think they've had a phenomenal Europa League run. They're obviously going to be so unbelievably up for it. And I think that's the other thing we need to be thinking about. You are 3 games away from winning a Europa League. You don't even need to win any games to win the Europa League here. If you draw every game and you win on penalties, you've won the Europa League. But you might only win one of the next 3 and still win it. But, winning your home game, I think, is going to be key. That, I genuinely think if let's say we took a 2-1 loss. No, sorry. We took a 3-1 win in the first leg. We're at home, obviously, 1st of May. I am not sitting here going, that's easy, we're through. I don't think so whatsoever. If they're going to put 2 goals past Lazio and keep a clean sheet at home, Lazio are no mugs. They're a decent side. Definitely need to be thinking about that. So we'll sort of see. But let's talk a little bit about Bodo Glimt. And this was posted at the end of January this year. And they were talking about Bodo Glimt. And they're talking about the manager, who is Ketel Knutsen. I don't know. There's a J in the middle of it, which I think might be silent. He's actually been at the club as head coach since 2018. So long-standing figure at the club. 7 years there is massive. Now, look, they have a ton of success domestically, being one of the bigger sides in the elite Syrian, I think. I think. Um, looking at, I want to look more so. I had Victor Boniface, didn't they? Yeah, they had Victor Boniface. Interesting. Bonkers old thing. There's too much information in there for me. I won't understand half of it. But yeah, they had Victor Boniface. No, looking at their style of play, when we talk about build up, okay, this is hilarious. They quite often build up, listen to this, in a 1-4-3-3. You're thinking, excuse me? Now, they've not put it around the right way, but basically they play the back four, one number six, two number eights, and front three. That's Tottenham Hotspur as well. Okay. They play the same sort of style as us. The idea is to provide width, allowing for control, possession in deep areas, and then more width out wide again with those wings, like Spurs do. It's, when we talk about this, they play a similar formation to Spurs. So what you think of Spurs is kind of what they do as well. Now, they also play into their striker, which I think is something we don't do enough with Sankey at times. But again, their strikers also run behind and into space, which that's why Mickey van der Ven is the ultimate, trump card in all this. If you want to run into space, you're more than welcome to. I always say you're more than welcome to run into space, not a problem. Just make sure you don't do it on the left-hand side because you'd be wasting your time. I witnessed Ekatike, Bahoya, rapid players run and get in behind. And Mickey van der Ven was just the whole time going, hello, mate, I'm just going to take that ball. Just cheers. See ya. Every time someone runs down that left wing, my whole thought, and this used to be when we had Carl Walker, and Walker would intentionally let them run down the line. No, I'm going to show you completely down the line. I'm going to run side by side with you whilst I'm jogging. I'm going to let you kick it down the line, and then I'm going to zoom in and take it. Mickey does something a little bit similar. There's the line. Have at it. You're not going to outpace me. And he is the trump card, and that allows Destiny Doggy to press way higher. If you've witnessed in these two legs, because obviously Mickey didn't play against Wolves, so I can't really use that game as example, or Southampton. If you watch these two legs, where Spurs conceded one goal, by the way, in two legs, Mickey van der Ven allowing Destiny Doggy to press with confidence, knowing if the ball goes in behind me, don't panic. Quickest player in the Premier League will go and deal with it. That's why it's worked so well. And that's why when Mickey is injured, we do struggle and we fall off a lot more because we still want to press. We still want to try and win the ball high because that's where you get a lot of success. You're not having to break down multiple lines of defense. Mickey allows you to do that because Mickey can sweep huge areas of the pitch on his own. And he did it. The amount of times that Ekatike or Bahoya or someone else would get it one-on-one with Mickey and they would try and, run past him, and it was just a waste of their time. They got nowhere near the ability to run past him. So that's a key thing for Spurs. So keeping Mickey literally wrapped up in cotton wool is going to be massive. It goes on to talk about rotations and fluidity. Apparently, in their build-up, they constantly rotate. The team adopts a dynamic approach, shifting between formations to create numerical advantages and exploit spaces. The manager's focus is always to get the players into their best positions where they can make the most out of their individual skills. He emphasizes versatility with players interchanging positions seamlessly to maintain possession and to disrupt the opposition's defensive structure. Now, I think the one thing I would say is there's going to be times in the game where we're going to go, that's a 4-3-3. We can see they're doing a 4-3-3, and then it's a 4-5-1, and then it's a 4-2-4. And, they will mix up quite a bit. And as long as, I've got all the faith in the world that professional coaches see the things that we see and then some. We see 10% of what the game really is. They'll see the extra 90% that we would never ever see because we're not trained to do that. But, you would know that, okay, they're going to mix up at times. They're going to change systems. They're going to change things. We need to be adapting to that situation, or we're going to change it before them and they're having to adapt to us, a game of sort of cat and mouse. Yesterday, I think, was a prime example. We can change. If the game calls for it, we will change. And that's what they did, yesterday. And we went pragmatic. We sat back. There's a hair on my mic. I think it's from my beard. We sat back, went pragmatic, and we dug in. And we dug in with quality. I think the other key thing when it comes to this game as well, when I talk about Spurs' health, it's not just Mickey and Kuti being fit. It's people like Richarlison. I know Maddison, let's see what goes on there. We've got a couple of weeks until we play the first leg. You would hope Spurs would win the first leg without Maddison. He's probably going to be more necessary for the second leg, if you know what I mean. Like you got Kulu, which you think Kulu being back yesterday, the amount of times dragged you upfield, even though, he might lose the ball. He's lost the ball 70 yards away from your goal. And when you're dug in and when you are pinned back, a guy just dragging the ball 70 yards upfield allows you to move forward extra 10, 20 yards, gives you a bit more breathing room. And he allowed it yesterday, So that was great. I think I think that's going to be massive in a couple of weeks' time. More match fitness for Kulu. When you think about Richie, more match fitness for Richie. I think that's going to be massive. I can see Richie starting Monday night against Nottingham Forest. Actually, absolutely, I could see it. If we can get 60 minutes into Richie, and then maybe 60 minutes against Liverpool with Richie, you're going to get a guy coming into Bodo Glimt. Okay, he might not start because obviously, Solanke is the number one striker. But if you've got a guy coming in going, yeah, but if it's not going well, I can play, 60, 70, 80, 90 minutes if necessary, because things, in the second leg, it might go extra time. Having abilities to have players that can play serious minutes of those players being quality is massive. I think, keeping Tell developing along and along and along. Odebear, I expect Odebear to be playing Monday. I don't foresee having I don't foresee for the next week none of the main players playing for the next week. We've still got a couple of weeks until we play this game. I would expect to see maybe even Mickey and Kuti on Monday night, but to see maybe neither of them on Sunday, where you might go, we're going to play Ben and Danso against Liverpool. I mean, I wouldn't even be shocked if they go Mickey and Kuti, they're playing Monday night, but they're coming off at 60th minute. We're going to play them 60 minutes, and hopefully we're 2-0 up by that point or whatever, and you can. Obviously, when we talk about Richie and we talk about Kulu, it's an opportunity for people like Archie Gray, Pape, Jed Spence, Odebear, like I said. I think it's worked massively. These periods where we talk about, we need to sort of rotate, keep some of those players fresh. We'll use other players to maybe actually develop and build form. Look at Matisse Tau. I think it's really massively helped that, okay, obviously not great that Son was injured, and I wouldn't risk Son. I think I'd rather get Son 100% now, because Son at 100% is still a good player. I'd rather Son just be 100%. So if it is literally, he's not playing until Bodo Glimt first leg, fine, not bothered. Keep playing Matisse Tell, keep playing Odebear, keep playing Jono, keep their form building, keep, their match fitness sharp, and then you sprinkle back in a Heung-Min Son. I think and a fit Heung-Min Son as well, by the way. I think would be massive. You sprinkle in a fit Kulusevski. You sprinkle in, I don't even think Mickey is 100% yet. He hasn't played a ton of football since coming back. I don't even foresee Mickey being 100%. I think Mickey can get better. So, I think it's really exciting, but we'll sort of see. We'll move on a little bit to Bodo Glimt, because this is another key thing. It goes on to talk about the back line. It says a massive part of Bodo Glimt's high possession build-up is to have the defenders high up. This helps in the counter press because they get closer to the midfield. Having more players close to the centre who can win the ball back makes it difficult for opposition to do anything when they win possession. Furthermore, the high back line shortens the distance between players and shortening the time and length of the passes, preventing the opposition from pushing up the defence. So this, I think, is interesting. Get the opening goal. Get the opening goal, make them come and press you that little bit more, and then use Maddison or Kulu in space and use the pace that you have. Because there is pace in this team. I think we've seen it against Frankfurt, especially. Bohoya, quickest guy in Germany. Oh, Ekitike, really, really quick. It's like, okay, well, we got Mickey van der Ven, so whatever. But it's also, oh, look at Matisse Tell. He was quite up for it. Look at Jono. I thought I saw Jono in the first leg. No, sorry, the second leg yesterday, run away from his fullback. And I was like, I'm so glad to see that because Johnson is rapid, by the way. He's not slow. You might look at his like running style and think he's not that quick. He is rapid. And sometimes I wish he kind of understood how quick he truly was at times. And I saw it yesterday, and he did that cutback for Tell, who sort of scuffed his shot, and actually it was a great opportunity, and it's an amazing ball in for him. I think you're going to get opportunities to get in behind this defensive line. So, if it is Son, if it is Jono, Tell, Odebear, whoever it is, they need to be aware. Get on your bike. Get on your bike because Maddison and Kulu need to be putting the ball over the top or putting the ball in behind and making, the sort of the wingers run in behind and then feeding Solanke from that. I'd expect in these two legs for at least, I obviously expect to play, I expect to score obviously more than a goal, but I expect at least one goal to be a winger playing it to a winger across the box, tapping. Okay, that's what I would expect. If they're going to play such a high line, that's what I would expect. Another key thing that they emphasize in this system is playing through the number 6. When I talked about Frankfurt, a lot of their build-up play actually came from the width. I'd said a while. A lot of their build-up comes from overlapping and overloading the wide areas. Bodo Glimt do it just that a little bit differently because the ball starts off with the number 6 and then it goes. So it says Bodo Glimt constantly emphasizes playing through the number 6, which is Patrick Berg, during the build-up phase, making an essential role to the progression up the field. By directing the ball to number 6, Bodo Glimt can quickly establish control in the midfield, using this player as a pivot to link the defense with more advanced attacking players. They talk about Patrick Berg, but I think he's suspended for the first leg, so we won't be talking about that. Another one that, honestly, they do so much football similar to us, because the other thing is, think about if the ball's on the left-hand side. They're playing down the left-hand side. Their right back inverts. So as much as they keep width, one of the opposite fullback will invert and come centrally. So when you think of like Pedro Porro, when we play down the left, Pedro Porro comes and plays centrally. So they will overload the midfield at times when they are overdoing it down one side. Because the idea is then they can spring, early crosses, early shots, or they can get the ball out to the other winger in space quickly. The other thing they also do is try and find the 2 number 8s. So, I talked about Patrick Berg being a number 6, sitting, and the ball starting with Patrick Berg, and then it goes either left or right, or the other thing they do is their 2 number 8s find pockets. So, you think of Kulusevski in our team, who Maddison doesn't find pockets as much because the ball sort of goes through Maddison a bit more. Bergvall, or in other words, Kulu finds a pocket and the ball gets to him and then they go. For them, they use both of their number 8s to find those pockets. So I kind of feel like when you think about Patrick Berg, if you put a ton of pressure there, you can really start to affect their ability to get out. And I think in the first leg, you will at times pin them back and they will have to sit deep. I'm talking about Bodo Glimt. In the second leg, I'd expect us at times to have to sit deep and soak up a lot of pressure. First leg, I think we will have them a bit like we did with Frankfurt, where we just kind of dominated the game, created a lot of good opportunities. It's then from us, are you just going to score them? Because yes, they shouldn't have been a concern. We 1-0 up, but actually we should have been like 4-1 up on the tie before we even scored in the second leg. Because their keeper obviously had a blinder. We hit the post a couple of times, the bar a couple of times. We missed a shot from, I think, like 2 yards out. So that is the big thing. Take your chances. And I think you can seriously affect their style of play. Now, like I said, they change systems depending on the situation. So if you do take out the number 6, they'll change a system where they get maybe 2 number 6s and then they find the number 8, the sole number 8 in that space, It wouldn't shock me there. But they again do play balls through defensive lines like Romero does, who did it yesterday magnificently. They love numerical advantages against the defense. The idea is with their high build-up is to create numerical advantages. So, quite frequently you'll actually see, hilariously, 5 in attack. They'll put 3 guys, because there was a game, I can't remember who it was against. They were playing a back 3. They put 3 guys up against that back 3 and then their 2 wingers. So they completely took every single player in that defense and put a body on them. Therefore, there was no chance of doubling up, because then the space that the midfielders are having to come over it and work on doubling up is so vast that they might do it sometimes, but they're not going to have the legs to do it for 90 minutes. So you're going to get opportunities to go one-on-one. And then, look, if you can get a cross in the box and you've got 4 players in the box, you've got a good damn chance of getting on there. You know what I mean? So they quite often play that sort of front 5 to really overdo it, which means Bentancur is going to be massive in that. We're going to, Mickey van der Ven and Romero, constant communication, because the balls are coming in the box. They were brilliant yesterday, and you could tell the communication yesterday was white hot, and it was brilliant. If it wasn't Romero clearing it, it was Mickey clearing it. And if it wasn't Mickey clearing it, it was Romero clearing it. And if it wasn't either of them, it was Big Kev Danso doing it. But I think Bentancur has been super switched on for these 2 ties, especially. He's been great since the international break, obviously, when he played for Uruguay. But he's been so switched on playing that number 6 role that you look at it and go, okay, so he actually can play there once, he's a bit more, okay, I probably shouldn't press there. Got a few people here. I'll sweep up everything that gets behind. I'll let Bergvall and Madison go. They'll do that, but then also at the same time, once they get you, and this is the thing, if you give the ball away up high, they will get you. So if the ball goes into Bentancur, and I saw it a couple of times yesterday where he sort of tried to play the ball around the corner and the pass just wasn't right, they'll pounce, they'll attack, and they will go. So we need to be alert to that side of things as well. So really fascinating. They play a lot of the similar situations as us. When it comes now to the final third, they love wide overloads. Okay, they love that, obviously, from fullbacks. But obviously, as well, they get normally a winger, a fullback, and maybe an attacker and a midfielder, all in quite a short space. Quick passes. The idea is if ball comes into the left back comes in the striker. The midfielder has now made his move to get on that one-touch link-up play. The striker, he's in on your back 4. They love doing that. When it comes to the ability that maybe, they're in transition and it goes out to the wingers, overlaps. Their big thing is overlaps, okay, which is mostly their fullbacks, because their idea is to create that 2-on-1. They do underlap as well, but I feel like that's more of like they're one of their number 8s that doesn't underlap, whereas the overlap will always be their fullback. I don't think their fullbacks have been as massive on underlaps as their number 8s have. And yeah, the other thing they do is they absolutely stack the box. So again, if you can get a good clearance on there, you could find a ton of space on the counter. So that's what I'm saying. If you can get a goal to take it 1-0, they will start to press that a little bit higher. They'll start to work that a little bit harder to try and get the ball back off of you higher up the pitch, so they can obviously just be on your defense straight away. They're going to whip some crosses in. If you clear the said crosses and Kulusevski's standing there going, I've got 30 yards of space around me, off we go. Before you know it, you're 4-on-4. And you'd expect Spurs 4-on-4, not every time to score, but you'd expect if we're going to get 4 or 5 of those, you're going to score at least 1. So that's massive, by the way. That's massive. When it comes to their defending, high press, big thing. They high press. When it is low press, they do more of a mid block than a deep block, okay? And the idea is, which does actually suit us, they close off the centre to make you go wide. Okay, fine. Our success comes from going wide. So that might be something we might get them on if they do go a bit deeper, is to play wider. But then it's from there, quality. What are you doing with the ball once you're out wide? Are you whipping in quality for, a Slanky or a Charlison, a Jono, for example, if you're on the left-hand side? Are you whipping in quality for them to get on the end of? Or how we normally have in the last few months, whipped in utter rubbish that nobody has going to have a chance of getting on the end of, And the other thing they do in defending is they squeeze the pitch. That they will squeeze certain areas, okay? And it will make you pass backwards. It will make you go back to the keeper. And that's what suits them. Obviously, I won't go too much more into transitions and things like that. But, I think it's really fascinating that they do play a similar brand to Tottenham. I think they play offensively and defensively similar brands to Tottenham. That might come into our aid. I think the other thing is they want to get on the ball a bit, which again might suit us. Especially by the way, on the first leg at home. They're going to want to get on the ball and play some football and do their thing. And they might score, but I would be right now sitting here with confidence saying we will score at least 2 in the first leg, in my opinion. And if you are going into the second leg, if you've got a buffer and you're up on aggregate, hell of a chance. I mean, we went to Frankfurt with no buffer, with no aggregate. It was a cup final and we won. Didn't go to extra time. We won and kept a clean sheet. I think Bodo Glimt are a good side. They are not Frankfurt. Let's be real. Frankfurt are third in the Bundesliga. They're there for a reason. Yes, Marmoush maybe was a huge reason, but they were there for a solitary reason of they are a good side. But Bodo Glimt aren't any mugs. They're not. So when fans do kind of go, "Oh, that's us in the final," then I wouldn't sit there and think that, I wouldn't sit there and think that. By the way, I know I have missed some good mornings and good afternoons. Good morning to you all. All right, I promise. I have seen the names of here. All right, I've been ticking off my register to say that they've been here and turned up. Ball Roll TV. What do you think of Bergvall? Do we keep starting him in the big games? Absolutely, absolutely. He was brilliant in both legs against Frankfurt. He's growing every single time he plays. I thought yesterday was a much better defensive performance for him. I think he was very switched on. And I think a lot of the times when you're young, you do kind of rely on the people around you to say, right shoulder, left shoulder, drop a couple of yards for me, go, whatever it is. You rely sometimes on other people to help you because sometimes you aren't switched on. You're young, you're still making mistakes. And when you've got Bentancur next to you, Romero, behind you, and you've got Porro to the right of you. These are guys that are in their, mid to late 20s. They're, international footballers. They've won trophies. They are good players. You can lean on them because then you go, you learn, you start to pick up on things. So I think he's going to be fine. I'm not worried about him at all. I think, I think with Lucas, it's especially in the first leg. Can he impact the way he did the first leg against Frankfurt, where beating players on the dribble, spinning away into space, getting shots off, whipping in crosses? I thought yesterday from set pieces, it's like we had a couple of chances from set pieces. I thought Romero was close. Bentancur had a free header. I'll have to have a bit of a look at their set pieces side of things. I don't know if there's anything on here that shows me anything. It doesn't. I have to do a little bit more research in my own time about their set pieces. But we were over those 2 ties. We probably should have scored 1 or 2 from set pieces. So, we need to be maybe making more advantages of that. But that comes from Bergvall, that comes from Porro, and I thought Porro and Bergvall's deliveries into the box yesterday. My whole thing with crosses is give us something to fight for, give us something to work with. Amount of times I see Maddison or Son hit it into the first man. What are you doing with that? Even if it goes deep and, there's not a lot of players there, all right, well, there's an opportunity that you can still do something potentially, and I think that's what Porro and Bergvall gave us yesterday. It was good to see Porro mostly on set pieces. Keep him there as well. I don't care when Maddison or Son comes back. For the most part, if Bergvall and Porro are on the pitch, you have them on set pieces now, because I've watched those two hit first man after first man after first man. I've watched these two get past the first man and actually put great crosses in and great balls in that we can work with. So I think that's another thing that I think we have missed out on a lot this year, which I think we are starting to see some reward from. So look, I think Spurs will win this tie. I do. I'm not saying I don't think we won't. I think Spurs will win this tie. Now, what I would say is anyone that's sitting there thinking we're going to beat them 4-0 and 4-0, I think you live in a cuckoo world. At home, like I said, they've beaten Porto, they've beaten Besiktas, they've beaten Lazio, they beat FC20. They won away to Braga. You know, they made Man United really struggle. I mean, if I look at Bodo Glimt versus Man United, let's have a look at some of the stats from the game. You know, they sat back, had 27% possession. They had nearly as many shots on target as Man United in 13 less shots. Man United struggled. You know, I'm just saying with that, let's not write them off. Now, like I said, I think we should win, but you know, anyone thinking, this is easy, this is 6-0 in aggregate, we're going to roll into the final. We're not good enough to be saying things like that. It's different if we were sitting in third right now. I'd be like, yeah, we're going to roll into this final. We're not. We're absolutely not going to roll into the final. I'd expect them to cause us some issues. I do. I think they are a smart team. They're a well-drilled team. If they're playing defensive football or they're on the offense and they're going to press you, they know what they're doing. They're not mugs. Now, obviously, when it comes to the first leg being on the 1st of May, we'll obviously do the preview towards the back end of this month, as you can expect. Things can change in that time. Injuries can happen in this time. Let's just hold off and see. Obviously, the big thing for us is, you know, those key players, they need to be wrapped up in cotton wool at times. Save themselves from themselves. You know, it's great that Richie's coming back. It's great that Kudu's coming back. And it's great that Big Kev's back. But now you've got a squad, however you think they're quality or not, you've got a squad that you now need to be using. So, you know, Monday night, I'd expect some rotation. Obviously, I don't think Madison's playing Monday, so you're going to be forced into at least one change. I would hope Richie's going to get some minutes on Monday night, maybe starts. Odebear, expect to play some minutes. Johnson's played a lot of minutes recently, so I expect Odebear to come back in. It might go Matisse Tell again. We'll wait and see on that. You know, I think Jed Spence will probably come back into the team as well. Don't think Big Kev's ready for 90 minutes just yet, but for sure off the bench. He might even put Ben Davies into start and go, we're not faffing around. Mickey, I'll see you. You know, he might even play. He might play Mickey, but he might even say to Mickey, I'll see you in the 1st of May, mate. I'm not risking you. You are too important to this team and this success to risk getting you injured. I think it's a great opportunity, though, like I said, to build form through other players. Give Archie Gray more minutes. You know, give Pape some more minutes. Give Odebear some more minutes. Jed Spence even more minutes. You know, the idea is with that, if you've got form and you've got confidence now in this first 11. You know, Mickey's confident, Destiny's confident, Romero's probably back to normal after the Wolves game. Vic's confident. I mean, Vic conceded 1 goal in 2 games in the Europa League tie. That's if we do that again, we're going to win this tie with ease. I don't think we will. I think we might concede more than 1. You know, Porro's going to be in form. Bentancur should be red hot. So should Bergval. I think Johnson will be in some form. He scored some goals. Tell will be in form. I think that's the key thing. You know, we talked about going into these 2 games with the games that we were playing leading into them. Playing Matisse Tell and building form, he might be a crucial part to your success. I mean, he nearly scored yesterday, which, you know, he needs to score an absolute screamer, but he was good yesterday, Matisse Tell. You know, get Odebear some minutes. Maybe then if you're building in form where you factor in, okay, now Matisse Tell got form because of that time before the ties. You've now got Odebear. You know, Richie scored against Wolves. He's in a little bit of confidence. You know, get Richie on against Forest as well and sort of look at it and go, we've got some really good informed players. If we can sprinkle in maybe another 3, you're going to have like 15, 16 really, really informed, confident players. I'm not sitting here thinking that we're going to win away to Liverpool. I'm not sitting here thinking we're going to smash Forest. Let's be real. Now, I mean, Amarim said it better. Amarim yesterday said something that makes a ton of sense. Where is it? Let me. I just don't care what Lionel Messi has to say. I just do not care. Shut up, Fabrizio. Ruben Amorim yesterday said we have to take a risk with kids in the Premier League. We have to focus on the Europa League. I think Man United fans, they'll lose games and they'll be unhappy, but they're also so aware. They're so aware that, look, let's be real. The season is all based on this competition now. And I expect Spurs to do something a little bit similar. I think we'll still play some main guys and they'll still get some minutes, but I'd expect the players that you might see, especially the ones that the rotational pieces that we brought in for Wolves, I expect to probably see them a bit more and build them up. Like I said, the main guys from yesterday, like Mickey and Destiny, Bergval, Bentancur, those guys didn't play. They're in form. One game won't kill all of that stuff for you. It won't. There's too much stuff in and around that. The great performance against Frankfurt in the first leg where we should have won 4 or 5-1. Obviously beating Southampton quite well as we did. Obviously, second leg now, there is a bit of a momentum swing where the Spurs players who haven't played a ton of football recently but played in those bigger games have had that success now. There is going to be confidence. You watch those boys yesterday after the game. If you don't think those boys are sitting there with a bit of confidence, I don't know what you think confidence looks like. The other thing I would say is, if you don't think those players are playing for Ange, you might want to see the after-game celebrations. These players are playing for Ange. Maddison apparently hates Ange, by the way. If I hate someone, I'm not having a massive hug and I'm not celebrating and laughing with one another. I'm not, Romero. Romero wants to leave. I think Romero wants to have success. That's all he cares about. He doesn't care about what the summer looks like. He cares about right now. And that's a guy that was celebrating like crazy yesterday. There's a lot of players there who have been kicked. And, the amount of people that go, we've been healthy since early March, Andy. So you just think you're injured, you get back from injury and you're just back to normal straight away. Shows to me that you've actually never had an injury, by the way. Because amount of times I've had a hamstring injury and it's like, I'm 19, 2 weeks out. I'm not back to normal straight away. I've had really massive injuries that are, months and months long. It takes you a while to get back to the level of fitness, and you might not even get back to the where you were before. So it takes time. So people going, these players have been back since early March. We should be better. Doesn't work like that, Chief. It doesn't work like that. I don't care that they're on tens and thousands or hundreds of £1,000s a week. There's also the fact that they're still human. They're not going to hit form like that. Doesn't work like that, okay? Now, if you get the odd one or two, maybe because the rest of the team's absolutely flowing, one or two might get back to form a bit quicker. But when you're reintroducing like 7 or 8 players, they're going to need time to get up to speed. And also there's international break in there as well. So, look, I'm looking forward to it. Obviously, Premier League, we've been poor. We have. But the Europa League, actually, we have been actually quite good this year. And that's the irony to all this season. Not good in the league, pretty damn solid in the Europa League. And I think there's a lot to take from that. I'm going into the Europa League now. There's 3 games left potentially to play. Max of 3 games, minimum of 2. We should be sitting here going with confidence saying, just do what we need to do. And then whoever it is, if it's Bilbao or if it's Man United, we will see whoever it is in the final. It's irrelevant who comes out of that side because we can't control that. We can only control what we need to do. So let's think about our 2 legs with Bodo Glimt. Let's try and win that first leg. Let's try and get ourselves a buffer of at least 2 or 3. Then we'll deal with one of those 2 boys on the other side. And to think, on Monday, it will be 4 weeks that day. 4 weeks on Monday. is the Europa League final. It's 21st of May, I believe. Quickly, how quickly that all turns around. That is mental. So look, I'm looking forward to it. Obviously, I thought this was a really great deep dive into Bodo Glimt. I think we learned so much about who they are in terms of how they play, who they are in terms of how they defend and attack, and how they build up and what they do when they build up. I think we're all learning a lot. I think we'll learn even more between now and then. But again, loads of stuff coming in, loads of stuff that we could be learning from, loads of stuff for information. Got a long time now between here and the first leg. It's basically 2 weeks. So it's a long time. Got a couple of games in the meantime. Obviously, Forest, we'll probably do the preview for that tomorrow for Forest. Obviously, Ange's pressed us today, so I'll be able to bring in a lot more of information for the preview for Forest. Obviously, Sunday is Liverpool away. I can't lie. I don't think many people are going to be bent out of shape at that game, if you know what I mean. If you know what I mean. And you do, don't you? You do, don't you? But look, thank you so much for joining me this morning. Go enjoy the rest of your mornings, your afternoons, your evenings, wherever you are in the world. And I'll speak to you all soon to talk a lot more about Spurs. Take care, everyone. Enjoy the rest of your Good Friday. I'll see you all tomorrow. Peace.